Hi, this recording is about installing, configuring, and using FileSync. The first step is to unzip the zip file into the location where you would like it to be installed. And now we'll cover what the app.config.json file has in it. Okay, so this utility allows you to synchronize with multiple instances. And the way that you do that is you set up a separate folder for each instance that you want to synchronize with. So in this case, I have a dev, a C:\dev/project A folder, and I've mirrored that on my file system here. And I have, just as a second example, a project B folder. So the idea is each of these folders might correspond to different clients on different instances. So once you've configured the root folder, you specify the host name. I'll use this. And then add in a user and pass key. And I'm going to remove the second instance. Before I do that, I should point out that when you run FileSync, the user and pass gets encoded into this auth key. So let me remove that. Okay, so that is basically configured for this folder here, Project A, that exists under the dev directory. You'll also notice on Windows I need to make this valid JavaScript, I need to double up the backslash, so I need to escape the backslash. Also keep in mind this is a JSON file, and to be valid, everything must be in double quotes, not single quotes. So going on to folders, this basically maps between folders on your local file system and tables on ServiceNow. So any folder that appears underneath a root directory that matches the keys here, so business rules, is going to sync to this to the instance that it that the root folder is mapped to. So if I, oops, Alt-Tab into Project A, and we add in a new folder called Business Rules. And I'm also going to add in a script includes. Both of these are already configured in the app.config.json. If you want to use a different folder name, you can change the configuration. But you see script includes is down here. So the other part of the mapping is, so it's mapping between a folder name and then a table name. And then the key field is what's used to match the file name against on the record. So the name column of script of sys_script is going to be matched by the file name to match between a record in the database and a file on the file system. And then finally, under fields, you specify the file extension, and that's mapped to the column that the file contents are going to be stored in. It sounds a little complex, but a couple examples and it should be clear. So I save that app.config.json. Now before I start up FileSync, we need to verify that on dev 40, which is the instance I'm using, that the JSON plugin is active, which it is. Okay, so with the configuration done, I just need to start FileSync. And on Windows, just double click the batch file here. On Mac, you'll right click and choose Open initially, and then you can double click it from then on. So I'm going to double click FileSync. You'll see that it shows that the credentials were encoded. So if I go back, you'll see that the user and passkeys have now been replaced by the auth key. And now I'm going to open up this folder in my file editor. And so we have two empty folders here. Now the way FileSync works is it treats empty files as special. So if there's an empty file on the file system, it will try to find the corresponding record on the server and grab the script from that record and put it in the empty file. So it's a way of doing the initial population of the files on your file system. For example, if I insert under script include a jsutil.js file, and oops, so this shows one thing I need to, if you remember, the configuration actually had this as plural, so I need to rename this to be script includes. And once I do that, you'll see that after I refresh my ID, it pulled down that file. And you can see these updates happening inside the console window. One thing to keep in mind, this console window has to remain open. If you close it, it ends the process that watches the file system for changes. And the other thing is you can use any editor. I'm using WebStorm, but you can use whatever editor you want. This is basically watching the file system for changes. Any changes to files underneath your root project folder, it's looking for changes and using the parent folder, in this case script include, to map to the instance. So that's how you can get your file locally. FileSync doesn't create files on the instance, so if you don't already have a script include, for example, you need to create it first on the instance. So I can just, I already had sync tests, I'll do sync test 2. And going back to my editor, add in a file called synctest2.js and refresh, and you'll see that it pulled down that new script include. And now as I start making changes, so let's say I don't want to use prototype stuff, and I just want this to be an empty object for now. If we go back to our instance, we'll see that that change has already been synced. And it's pretty fast, so I can add something. Go back here. Well, before I can even refresh it, will already be updated. And another right click. What is it? Right click. No. Reload frame. There you go. Okay. And that's the basis. Oh, one other thing is if something happens on the server, and I update it, this does not automatically push down to the local file system. So if you know that a file has been changed since it was last updated on the local file system, One way of resyncing that from the server is to empty the local file system out. So let's just delete the contents here and save it, and then refresh, and you'll see that it added the changes from the server. And that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me, John Caruso, john.caruso@Fruition Partners. That concludes today's broadcast.